Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through research, articles, notes, all sorts of sources, really, to help you get informed fast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving into something really fascinating. What makes Ethiopia's people look so different? The sources we've gathered paint quite an incredible picture of history and human migration.
It's a story unlike almost any other place, really.
Yeah, and here's a fact to kick us off. Ethiopia is consistently flagged as one of the most genetically diverse countries anywhere on Earth.
That's right. And it's not just numbers on a page. You can actually see it. It's reflected in the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to explore why this huge diversity. We'll trace it back to Ethiopia's unique spot, the cradle of humanity, yes, but also this ancient crossroads.
A crossroads linking Africa, Arabia, the wider world for thousands of years.
Right, millennia of interaction literally written on people's faces. So how does all that deep history actually show up in Ethiopians today?
Well, maybe start with first impressions.
Good idea. Okay, picture yourself walking around Addis Ababa, the capital. What hits you first is just this kaleidoscope of features. It's striking. You'll see people maybe with lighter, sort of olive skin, maybe a straighter nose. Then right alongside them, someone with a deep, dark complexion and tightly coiled hair.
And everything in between.
Totally. Lighter brown skin, too. Sometimes eyes that aren't dark brown, but hazel, amber. I've even read about rare cases of green or blue. It just defies easy labels.
It really does.
And you hear this from travelers, right? People often say Ethiopians don't always look like what they might expect for typical East Africans.
That observation comes up a lot, and it points directly to what our research highlights. Ethiopia is this living genetic mosaic.
A mosaic. I like that.
Yeah, it's a direct result of its history, that unique position. It's this blend of African and Middle Eastern influences going back thousands of years. Every face tells part of that story.
Okay, so let's get into some specifics then. You mentioned eye color. That seems like a good place to start because it surprises people.
It does.
So most Ethiopians, maybe 90%, have dark brown eyes. But our sources show a significant chunk, maybe 5 to 8%, have lighter shades, hazel, amber.
Particularly in the highland groups, like the Amhara and Tigray.
Right, the highlands. And then those super rare cases of green or blue eyes. How does that happen?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting and nuanced. These lighter eye colors, they're often linked to genetic admixture.
Admixture meaning genetic mixing from different groups.
Exactly. Mixing with, say, Arabian or Mediterranean peoples, often through that ancient trade across the Red Sea we mentioned.
Ah, the trade routes again?
Yes. There was a genetic study back in 2017, I think. It pinpointed specific gene variants, alleles, that are common in Eurasian populations, but are definitely present in northern Ethiopia. That helps explain some of this diversity.
Interesting.
But then you contrast that with, say, pastoral groups in the lowlands, like the Afar. They tend to have the deep, dark brown eyes, more typical of equatorial Africa, so you see a regional pattern.
Wow, okay, so ancient trade, leaving a mark right down to eye color. Does that pattern, that kind of complexity, hold for skin tone, too? I've heard Ethiopia described as having a living gradient of skin tones.
A living gradient, that's a perfect way to put it, absolutely. The range of skin tones across Ethiopia is really distinct, tied to geography and ethnicity.
How so?
Well, you have the highland groups, Amhara, Tigray, again, often with lighter brown to olive tones. Their melanin index, which measures pigment, can be like 10–15% lower than lowland groups.
So noticeably lighter skin, generally.
Generally, yeah. Then you have groups like the Oromo and Grauj, often showing medium to dark brown tones. That likely reflects a mix of highland and lowland ancestries over time.
Okay.
And then in the lowlands, think Afar, Somali, Nur, Anahuac. You typically see these rich, deep, dark brown skin tones, which makes sense, right? It's
Yes.
highly adaptive for hot, dry climates with intense sun.
Adaptation to the environment.
Exactly. So it's thousands of years of adapting to the environment, plus Ethiopia being this constant crossroads for people from Africa and Arabia. It all layers together.
It's amazing how it's both adaptation and historical mixing, and I guess this diversity carries through to hair as well.
For sure. Hair texture, hair color, it's just as varied. You see tightly coiled hair, very common in southern and western groups. But then among highland, Amhara, and Tigray, looser curls and wavy hair are quite frequent, and occasionally you even see straight hair, especially in groups with more pronounced Middle Eastern genetic ancestry.
And color. Mostly black, I assume.
Predominantly black, yes.
Yeah.
But the research suggests maybe 4 to 6% of Ethiopians naturally have dark brown, sometimes even reddish brown hair, again, particularly in those highland populations.
So anthropologists see this
That's
as...
really reflecting Ethiopia's unique genetic position. It's like a bridge, you know, linking lineages from sub-Saharan Africa and Western Eurasia. It's quite a story, just in hair.
It really is. Okay, moving beyond those specific features, what about overall physique? People often talk about Ethiopians being tall and slender, especially Highlanders. Is that generally accurate?
There are definitely patterns there, too. You look at groups with melodic influenced people with ancestral ties to the Nile River basin, like the Anahuac down south. They're often quite tall. Males averaging over, say, 175, 180 centimeters. That's around 5'9" to 5'11". And typically very lean frames, well suited to the hot, sometimes swampy lowlands.
Okay, taller and leaner in those groups. What about the Highlands?
Highland groups, like the Amhara, tend to be slightly shorter on average, maybe more like 172 centimeters for males, about 5'7", and often a bit stockier, which could reflect adaptation to the mountains, different diet, that sort of thing. Female average height is around 160 centimeters, or 5'3".
And this links to something Ethiopia is famous for.
The runners, yes. This brings us right into sports science. Ethiopia's long-distance runners are world-renowned for a reason.
Right.
Studies, especially focusing on high-altitude populations like those from the RC Oromo region, show specific genetic adaptations for endurance. Things like higher oxygen efficiency. It's a fascinating connection. Genetics, geography, athletic dominance.
A really powerful example. Okay, let's talk facial structures. The notes mention dramatic variation here. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. So if you look at Highland Amhara and Tigray individuals, you often see narrower noses, maybe sharper cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes, features that sometimes make outsiders think of Middle Eastern or Mediterranean populations.
Okay, that comparison comes up.
It was. Then contrast that with Oromo and Garage groups, who often have more blended features, maybe broader noses, rounder faces. It reflects their own distinct histories.
Right.
Then you have groups like the Afar and Somali in the Horn. Often long, narrow faces, sharper features again, very typical for that region. And then the Nilotic groups, Anahuac, Nuer, stand out again. High foreheads, tall frames, long limbs. Quite distinct from the Highlanders.
So much variation. And this leads to a tricky point, doesn't it? The idea some outsiders have that Ethiopians don't look African.
Yes, that's a really sensitive and often controversial statement. And Ethiopians themselves, quite rightly, strongly reject it.
Understandably.
The key thing to grasp, and what the sources emphasize, is that Ethiopia is both. It's deeply African in its roots and heritage, absolutely. And it's uniquely positioned right at this historical contact zone with Asia. That has shaped its people in distinct ways. It's not an either situation, it's a blend.
That's a crucial distinction. So, thinking about all this history creating this diversity, what stands out to you, maybe something people don't always realize?
I think what's truly striking is just how many layers of history have left their mark.
Yeah.
Starts right at the beginning. Ethiopia as the cradle of humanity.
Right. Homo sapiens emerging there.
Exactly. Around 200,000 years ago in East Africa. And genetic studies confirm Ethiopians carry some of the absolute oldest human lineages on the planet. That's the foundation.
Wow.
Then layer on top of that the ancient trade across the Red Sea, huge contact with Arabia, bringing Middle Eastern genes, culture.
Okay.
Then the kingdom of Aksum rises as a major power from the 1st to 7th century CE. It connected Africa, Arabia, even India. Massive intermixing happened then.
Aksum was key then?
Absolutely pivotal. Later on, you have Islamic and Ottoman influences, especially bringing more Arabian elements into lowland groups. And even though Ethiopia famously resisted European colonization.
Yes, a point of huge national pride.
There were still limited contacts, say, with the Portuguese, later the Italians, that left small genetic traces too. It's layer upon layer.
So genetically, what does that mix look like overall?
Broadly speaking, studies suggest Ethiopians carry something like 60–70% sub-Saharan African ancestry and maybe 20–30% West Eurasian ancestry. But, and this is key, it varies a lot regionally.
Ah, back to the regional differences.
Exactly. Highland groups tend to show more of that Eurasian influence genetically. Lowland groups generally retain more of the deep African heritage. So every era, from the earliest migrations to recent trade, added threads to this Ethiopian tapestry. It shaped the faces we see today. It's really an epic human story.
It definitely sounds like it. And with such a complex background, it's maybe not surprising that identity itself is a big topic. This question of, are Ethiopians African, Middle Eastern, or something else?
Yes, this brings up a really important and sometimes heated discussion. The perspectives vary quite a bit.
How so?
Well, on one side, you sometimes hear the argument, often from outsiders, historically, that the sharper features or lighter skin, and some Ethiopians, especially highlanders, prove strong non-African ancestry.
Which gets criticized.
Rightly so, often. It's seen as having colonial undertones, trying to somehow separate Ethiopians from their African context. On the other hand, many Ethiopians push back very strongly against anything that downplays their deep African roots and continental connections.
So what do the genetics actually say about this identity question?
The genetics basically confirm that both sides have a point, partially. Ethiopians are among the most genetically mixed populations globally, that's clear. But their foundational genetic base is overwhelmingly African. It's a complex reality that doesn't fit neatly into boxes.
And there's another layer too, right? Ethnic politics within Ethiopia.
Absolutely. That adds another whole dimension. Ethiopia has over 80 distinct ethnic groups, each with its own look, language, culture.
80? Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes, unfortunately, tensions over which group represents the true Ethiopia or national identity play out in the political arena. And that adds a lot of emotional weight to discussions about physical appearance. It's tangled up with history, genetics, and modern politics.
It certainly sounds complex. Maybe to help us feel this diversity, let's try some sensory snapshots, like a quick mental trip.
Good idea. Let's try.
Okay, picture yourself maybe in Lalibela at dawn. Those incredible rock-hewn churches, pilgrims are gathering, wrapped in white cotton shamas.
The traditional shawls.
And you look at their faces, you see those high cheekbones, maybe almond eyes, that olive skin tone shining in the early light.
Okay, got it. Now, travel south, way down to the Omo Valley. It's a completely different world.
Right.
You encounter tribal groups there, people with deep ebony skin. They're adorned with intricate body paint, maybe lip plates, representing ancient traditions visually.
A very different aesthetic.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Then let's jump across to the Danakil Depression, one of the hottest places on Earth.
Scorching heat there.
And you see the Afar people. Tall, resilient, often with those sharp features we mentioned. Their hair coiled tightly, almost like a natural shield against that intense desert heat.
It's incredible, one country. But dozens of different faces, different ways of being, infinite stories, really.
Exactly.
So how do Ethiopians themselves connect this diversity to their history, their sense of pride?
It's deeply intertwined. For many, their appearance connects them to these ancient, powerful civilizations like Aksum. That's a source of immense historical pride, that legacy of independent kingdoms.
Sure.
For others, and this is also very powerful, the emphasis is on African solidarity. Ethiopia's unique history of resisting colonization makes it a potent symbol for the whole continent, a symbol of African resilience.
The beacon of independence.
Precisely. Now, do differences in appearance between groups sometimes cause friction?
Yes.
Sadly, sometimes tied to those ethnic politics we talked about.
Right.
But more often, I think, Ethiopians celebrate this shared, unique national identity precisely because it's so diverse. There was a survey, I think, 2019, where over 70% said they saw their ethnic diversity as a source of national strength, even while acknowledging it can fuel political tensions sometimes.
So pride in the mix, despite the challenges.
Yeah, a complex pride, but definitely there.
Which brings us right back to where we started. That striking finding. Ethiopia, one of the most genetically diverse places on the planet.
And that right there is the core reason why Ethiopians look so different. It's because their features literally embody both the incredible depth of Africa's oldest roots.
Back to the cradle of humanity.
And the sheer breadth of global connections that have flowed across the Red Sea for millennia. It's all there. From ancient fossils to today's champion runners, from highland farmers to desert nomads, Ethiopians really do reflect the story of humanity itself in all its amazing variety.
So maybe the takeaway for listeners is, next time you meet someone from Ethiopia, resist the urge to put them in a simple box.
Please do.
Instead, maybe see them as part of this incredible spectrum, a living reminder that identity isn't fixed, right? It's layered, shaped by history, by geography, by incredible resilience.
Well said. And maybe here's a final question for you, the listener, to think about. In our modern world, which still often tries to define nations by typical looks, does Ethiopia's amazing visible diversity ultimately strengthen its unity and its unique identity? Or does it pose an ongoing challenge? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating diversity of Ethiopia. We hope you found it insightful.